carpet python glided through the grass with purpose. It twisted its way through dry country, making its way through a town named Rosewood, located 60 kilometres west of Brisbane, nestled in the Bremer Valley in Queensland, Australia. The snake pressed forward, on the hunt for someone to devour, as it slithered past a spotted gum tree. In the distance, there was the sound of a Queensland rail train rattling as it headed towards the terminus. The python slithered onto a road, enjoying the warmth of chip seal tar. It slowed as an engine growl sounded, then amplified. The slippery critter reacted to the vibrations and hurried to move away as a car was almost upon it. There was a screech of brakes. Now, a stock 71 XY 351 GT Falcon wouldn't have had a hope of stopping. However, this heavily modified blue beast was an exception, its owner having thrown everything at it over the years, kitchen sink included. The door opened and the driver's hand appeared, indicating the other side of the road to the snake. "Shoo," the driver said, waiting until the lucky snake slithered out of sight. The door closed and the car spun and straightened, accelerating rapidly, zooming past the New Oakley mine, then an endless sea of assorted crops, from sorghum and barley through to chickpeas. Sitting in the retro black vinyl interior, a young man named Paddy sat brash and ready to take on the world. Short, slick back hair, an earring, armband tattoo, and a smoke dangling from his mouth. The man was at least 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and that was on a bad day in his mind's eye. Of course, much of his appearance was bravado. A frightened boy still lived within him, but he never let that show. In his car, he felt like he was someone more than Paddy Jones, the quiet country lad who was always going to grow up to be a shearer. An old rock song by the choir boys played, and Paddy grinned like a monkey. Thoughts nagged at him. The more you play the bad boy who doesn't give a shit about anyone bar himself, the more likely that is who you'll become. Was that so bad? He shook his head and such thoughts away. He pulled 4 dog tags from his chest and kissed them, then tucked them back inside his shirt. "Yeah," he yelled as he reached down for a stubby of beer and chugged it down. The GT screamed past a police car going in the other direction. The cop car spun around madly, hit lights and sirens, and set off in pursuit. 2 uniformed policemen watched the Falcon's lights fade from view. Constable Wright, 40s, balding, his uniform as crumpled as his forehead, pumped the accelerator. "Slow learner," he mumbled. Bradley, 25, less jaded than his partner and wearing a freshly ironed uniform, nodded agreement. He hadn't given up on the idea that he might be promoted from constable one day. "You want me to call for backup?" Wright sniggered. "From Ipswich? Nah, we don't need their help." The police car suddenly slowed. Bradley looked surprised. Why are we slowing? Our commissioner says we chase. Chasing acts as a deterrent, so that's what we do, right?" Wright brought the car to a stop. "We don't need to chase him. How many blue 351 GT Falcons do you reckon we've got running around Rosewood?" "Aha, you can't fix dumb," Bradley said. The cop car was moving again. Paddy's house was an old Queenslander set on a large block. The painted timber exterior was faded, and although the house had surrendered to the elements, it still offered a wide veranda that ran the length of the house. An old armchair sat out front, protected by the gable and corrugated iron roof. A dilapidated fence with missing posts led into an unkempt yard. Someone might have mowed it once, but there was no proof. Nearby, a black Labrador outside his kennel yawned. He looked around, bored, chewed on the remnants of a bone, and rolled on the grass. Was it dinner time yet? With a roar, the GT swerved into the driveway. Paddy laughed loudly, though it sounded hollow. He swaggered out, threw the stubby onto the road and relished the smash. He patted his dog, fumbled for the right key, something harder than one would think unless they too had downed a few schooners too many, then made for the door. Eventually, he opened the door and flopped into the house. The police car turned into the drive, lights flashing. Wright and Bradley exited and went towards the door. The dog growled at them. "Easy, boy," Bradley said. He patted the dog and looked up at Wright. "You know, Mark Twain once said that the more people he met, the more he liked his dog." Wright nodded. "He might have been onto something. Wait till you meet this bloke." They advanced on the door and the dog barked at them. Paddy sat in the lounge room on an old corduroy sofa that was worn through in spots and had cigarette burns in the armrests. He looked through the window at the blue lights with crazed eyes as the dog continued to bark. Several structures, made by empty beer cans with a pizza box on top, followed by more of the same to add new levels, stood impressively as high as Paddy himself in some instances. He sighed and looked down at his feet, his frame crumpling. For reasons he didn't understand, his brain also wondered if his love for Grandpa's medicine played a part in his need to spend money the moment he got it. He was just your average weekend millionaire from Friday night to Sunday, then back on the breadline Monday to Friday afternoon. Surely this wasn't a good way to live. Wright put an end to such contemplations as he entered with Bradley in tow. Bradley's hand hovered over his taser. Wright was calm as he rested a hand on Paddy's shoulder. "Right, you're nicked." "Piss off, you can't enter without a warrant," Paddy said, slurring his words. He hated authority. If you asked him to articulate why, it would come down to blaming other people for where he was and who he had become. Deep down he supposed he knew as much, but it was better to keep the truth at arm's length, no matter the cost. Wright pulled Bradley to his feet and kept a firm hand on his shoulder. "Wrong. We don't need a warrant to investigate traffic offences. Sooner or later, you're going to get the book thrown at you." Paddy laughed. It was all one big joke. His smile faded and the facade dropped, just for a moment. He looked back at Wright with arrogant eyes and pulled himself free. "Why don't you both get nicked?" Paddy retorted. "I could take you both in a fight, you know." Wright produced a taser. "Don't give us a reason to fry your ass." "Too late," Bradley chimed in. "I think he has given us a reason. Threatening police officers, dear oh dear." Paddy swallowed as Bradley removed his taser and nodded his head. "I'll stay quiet, no problems," he continued. "Stay cool," Wright cautioned Bradley. He didn't want the extra paperwork, despite suspecting a good zap might teach the kid some respect. Bradley kicked the chair. What's that? You want to start a riot and cause some problems?" He looked Paddy up and down, his tongue flitting from his mouth like a voracious serpent. Paddy jumped to his feet. "Piss off, I said." There was a crack as the taser was discharged. Paddy was struck by a dart, hitting his chest and barrelling him to the ground. He wanted to speak, to move, to do anything, yet 50,000 volts had rendered him immobile. "Oh yeah, crack on," Bradley said, holstering the taser. Wright snarled. Shit, Bradley. The extra paperwork is yours." Bradley nodded. Totally worth it." Wright sighed. "Righto, Paddy, you're under arrest on suspicion of drink driving. We'll get you back to the station to do some tests." Bradley looked over his shoulder, then, comfortable they weren't being watched, down at Paddy. "You complain about that zap I gave you, and I'll make your life a living hell. No one's going to believe it drunk, right? You understand me?" Wright and Bradley pulled Paddy to his feet. Outside the Ipswich Magistrates Court, Paddy wore a cowboy hat and an old purple Adidas suit. It still had a Salvation Army price sticker on the back of the jacket. He smiled wryly as he struck up a cigarette, waiting near the entrance to the old courthouse, next to a shabby roller door. He took a drag. He looked the tall, acid rain-stained building up and down. It was more tired than his suit. He glanced up and down the footpath, noticing dark blotches of gum that he suspected wouldn't come off, no matter how hard one scrubbed. A middle-aged man wearing a hoodie and shorts exited the courthouse triumphantly, shadowboxing his way out the door. Paddy noted the track marks on his arms, the discoloration along his veins perceptible. He tried not to judge, but wondered how the damage this man had caused his body by injecting drugs intravenously compared to the impairment he had inflicted on his mind. "You get off too," the man checked with Paddy as he shambled by. Paddy nodded. "Yeah, man, good as gold." The junkie laughed, his chest rattling as his laugh turned into a cough. "Me too." They high-fived, though Paddy's heart wasn't in it. He watched the man box his way down the street, giving the finger to anyone who looked